Sea, because there's no way China can dominate Taiwan without having some sort of dominance in the the rear area, which is the South China Sea. So I think that also compresses the time horizons in a sense, and also gives a greater sense of urgency that hindi lang tayo pwede umasa sa America. We have to also work it out with other countries in the region, right? Including US
Yes.
allies like Japan, Australia, etc., who also have their own interests. I'm sure your concerns about US withdrawal, it's also a concern in Japan, also a concern in Australia, right? Because bati sila, lagot din sila if ever US withdraw.
Yes.
But they have to prepare, right, accordingly.
Yeah, we have to prepare. And right now, everybody's saying that the next move of China will be to invade Taiwan. But we are really the low-lying fruit. If China encounters difficulty in invading Taiwan, and President Xi is under pressure to create a diversion from their domestic problems, he might just choose the Philippines as the low-lying fruit, and maybe build more naval bases in the Spratlys or even in Scarborough Shoal. So we are really the low-lying fruit here, and the alternative to an invasion of Taiwan. So we have to prepare for that also. Thank you.
Now, just before we go to the last part of this conversation, whereby perhaps we can look at the range of options we have to maximize our position and not to be so low-hanging fruit, fully. Let's talk about this discussion DOJ and also the Office of Solicitor General about filing potential new arbitration case against China on the grounds of the damages that they have inflicted on our coral reefs, no? Base sa mga latest reports and evidences that have been gathering. I mean, how do you feel about this? What are the prospects? I think we tried to do something with that a few years ago when the late Foreign Secretary Albert Rosario and also the other Justice CARPIO Morales, of course, pushed for that ICC cases against Xi Jinping and all. It did not prosper because ICC said it doesn't have jurisdiction. So technically speaking, what kind of arbitration are we looking at here, Justice CARPIO? Because you have been one of the leading voices for what I call, let's say, follow-through arbitration cases. Like hindi dapat end-all be-all lang in 2016. Dapat simula pa lang yun a new chapter of lawfare, no? Going after Chinese companies, etc. But at the same time, isn't this a bit ironic? Because it's the same DOJ and Solicitor General Office which has been, bashing ICC or saying wala kayong pake dito, like, doesn't that undermine our moral ascendancy or even momentum in terms of getting the help of international arbitration bodies? I mean, you cannot have the cake and eat it too, right? Or maybe.
Yes, there are two fora here, Richard. What was filed against President Xi Jinping was a crime against humanity, but that is before the ICC, the International Criminal Court.
Yes.
If we file an environmental case against China for the destruction of the coral reef, it will be with the UNCLOS Tribunal. Remember, in the arbitral award of the UNCLOS Tribunal, right, the tribunal ruled that China caused severe damage, permanent damage to the coral reef system in the Spratlys. But we did not ask for damages because we felt that what was more important at the time was to strike down the 9-dash line as a basis of the claim of China to encroach on our exclusive economic zone. We did not ask for damages, but this time, if we ask for damages, we can file the case before an UNCLOS tribunal.
Because the same Article 287, Annex 7, compulsory arbitration. I mean, the same.
Yes.
Yeah, we can
same.
Do the same. Yeah.
Yeah, the same. We will now file because that was one of our statements of claim when we filed the arbitration in 2013, that China caused severe damage to the coral reef system. We will do the same, but this time we will add damages. There will be the tribunal will accept jurisdiction because that's very clear within the jurisdiction of an UNCLOS tribunal. It does not have to be the territory of the Philippines because the tribunal has jurisdiction over exclusive economic zones.
thank you, Justice Carpio, for clarifying that in terms of this follows through. My sense is, had it not been someone like Duterte, perhaps that would have been an option back in 2016 and 17, not in 2023, 2024, no? So we lost many, many years to effectuate, no? Yung ating karapatan sovereign rights dyan sa West Philippine Sea. We lost many years to strengthen our positions sa Reed Bank, no? And development of resources there. We lost many years in terms of making sure na yung ating mga mangingisda, no, and ating mga resources dyan ay hindi binababoy, no. So this is where, of course, Justice Carpio, I'm pushing back against the argument na magpasalamat tayo kay Digong dahil, I don't know, minura-mura niya yung Amerika. Ngayon, mas sinusuportahan tayo ng Amerika. I mean, dahil sa kanya, sa kanyang katapangan. Di ba? Of course, I'm sure you're familiar with that line of argument, no? I mean, maybe I kind of agree with it to a certain degree. I even had Greg Pauling and some of our American friends kind of saying, yeah, the US is more taking us seriously. But my sense is just the physics of geopolitics, just concerns about China would have always made the Philippines more important. Hindi natin kailangan babastusin yung mga aliado natin or gawin yung mga ginawa ni Digong because we lost so much ground vis-a-vis China in the South China Sea. Now, Justice Carpio, you were also mentioning a few years ago, was that in your Wall Street Journal op-ed about even the option of taking the cases to courts in different countries where Chinese state-owned companies have assets, and perhaps those assets could be a basis for damage reparations, etc. Is that something you're still pushing for? Let's say Sinopec, CNPC, some of the Chinese companies who are involved in illegal activities, drilling, whatever, they could be liable for damages via their subsidiaries in Western countries.
That's correct, Richard. Let us assume that we cannot survey and drill in Reed Bank because of Chinese opposition, and Sinuk instead gets the gas. Now, the tribunal has ruled that the gas belongs to the Philippines. So China, through its Sinuk, state subsidiary, state corporation, got the gas and sells the gas. So that is stolen property. The gas belongs to us. China stole it. So we can sue China, let's say in Canada, where Sinuk has operations, some assets, and we can attach those assets. We can go to a country that is a member of the United of UNCLOS, because they are a member of UNCLOS, they will recognize the arbitral award and sue for damages for the theft that was made by China for stealing the gas, because the gas belongs to us. That's the decision of the arbitral tribunal. That's still in the play if China will get the gas. Now, if China does not get the gas, we will sue China for damages if China prevents us from getting the gas.
And so, Justice Carpio, can we use that as a credible threat to nudge the Chinese to let us have our way in the Reed Bank based on our own rights? Maybe, I don't know, we can have a service contract with the Chinese somewhere there in the West Philippines para lang good feels, pero the idea of them claiming yung resources sa Reed Bank, that's just non-negotiable, right? I mean, ano yung diskarte na pwede natin gamitin with all of these options that now we have under Marcos administration that we didn't have to really get the ball rolling sa Reed Bank? Kasi wala the bomb, parang ticking bomb talaga yan, di ba?
Well, we tried that. We really went to the maximum, to the edge of the cliff, in the words of Teddy Boy, when we signed the MOU with China. Because under the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, we agreed to cooperate with China to get the gas in Reed Bank, but under the service contract system of the Philippines. And China agreed. We signed that. We said under the service contract of the Philippines, because every service contract of the Philippines says, whereas the first whereas clause says, whereas the oil and gas belongs to the Philippines. Yeah. So I said, that's okay, because that's very clear. And there's another provision that the contract shall be governed by Philippine law. I said, that's it. Those are the two provisions that have to be there for us to sign an MOU. And they were there. So we were happy. And the terms of reference was signed. Okay, just to implement the MOU. But the last agreement was supposed to be a commercial agreement between Sinuk and Forum Energy, whereby CNOOC will become a subcontractor of Forum Energy, because Forum Energy has the concession for service contract 72, that's Reed Bank. So CNOOC will either be purely service contractor or will be an equity holder and subcontractor of Forum Energy. But at the last minute, China said, wait a minute, let's remove that phrase, whereas the oil and gas belongs to the Philippines. Remove that clause that Philippine law will govern. They wanted to remove those two provisions, and Teddy Boy said, if we remove that, we'll fall off the constitutional cliff. So he said, I cannot do that. And he recommended to President Duterte to terminate those signed the agreements already, and Duterte agreed. So that's the history there. We tried our best. I was happy that China was willing to sign the MOU, because the way I
For
thought,
service contract, not a joint development agreement, etc.
no, it's not a joint development. It's a service contract. Means China is just our agent as contractor. We are the
Shell
owner.
in Malampaya, something like that.
Yes, just like Shell. Just like Shell. They just provide service and they paid in kind with the gas. But they are just a contractor. The owner is the Philippines. That was perfect. But I don't know why. I thought that President Xi would already find that as a template for a South China Sea-wide solution to the dispute. Because I talked to the Vietnamese, to the Malaysians, they said, that's perfect with us. If you sign, we can sign also. And I thought we were in the cusp of finding a solution to the South China Sea dispute. But at the last minute, China took back its word. And we had to scuttle it. And what Secretary Teddy Boy did was correct, to just scuttle it. Now, when after President Marcos Jr. came back and he said, let's have joint patrol with the Americans, China again said, let's negotiate for a joint cooperation again. But I said, well, it will go back to that. It will boil down to that. And so nothing really has happened so far. But if China really wants because no Southeast Asian country that is infringed by the 9-dash line will ever consider China a friend, as long as China claims their maritime zones or territories. The people will never accept it. No government can survive if they concede to China the maritime zones. That's why Vietnam, Malaysia, they will never concede. The government will fall if it concedes. So I thought China was willing to come to an agreement. It will get 40% of the gas of each country. And China, CNOOC, will displace all these Western companies. All Western companies will be displaced by CNOOC. And I thought that was that was enough for them. But apparently they are more greedy. They want to get everything. That's the big problem.
You give them 1 inch, they want the whole hand. So that's why kaya talagang kailangan na you're very clear with your red lines and you negotiate hard, no? Hindi pwede yung mabait ka, yung Tatay Digong style na I love you, protect me. All of those kind of barangay geopolitics, it's not gonna work. You have to be very professional when you deal with the rising power like China, because they'll also protect their own national interests and push for a maximalist position.
We must be aware of our maximum position and stay there.
And last, Justice Carpio, so what is like the action plan you're thinking for the coming 6 months to 1 year? Kasi yun nga, the time element is very important here. Yung Reed Bank, paubos na. Diyan naman sa Ayungin Shoal, medyo alanganin din tayo doon because isa pa yan na ticking time bomb, di ba? Kasi yung Sierra Madre is also falling apart. So you have two really, really sensitive situations at the same time. And it's really staring us in the eye. So for 6 years, Digong, dinidribble-dribble lang niya yan, hindi niya sinolve yan. So now this is on the lap of kawawa naman si Marcos Jr. I was like, protect BBM, di ba? He has to deal with these two simultaneous disasters, no? What is the action plan here, Justice Carpio? I did a 3.5 point, what about the action plan? In the next 6 months to 1 year pa lang, no? I mean, Forget, who knows in 5 years
Well,
what's gonna happen to Sierra Madre.
well, the number one thing that we have to do is to get the gas in Reed Bank. That means we have to finalize the joint patrol with the US before the end of the year and get Forum Energy to send its survey ship and drilling ship there. We have to complete that because it takes 4 years at least to develop Reed Bank. So if we run out of gas in Malampaya in 2 years, it will take us 4 years to develop Reed Bank. So we have a gap of 2 years
Yeah.
where we have to import LNG. And that will be very painful for the economy. So it's really urgent. I hope the entire nation will realize the urgency of the matter, that we have to know, can we get the gas in Reed Bank or not? Because if we cannot get the gas in Reed Bank, we have to tighten our belts. It will be terrible for us to be importing LNG because the manufacturing costs, the biggest part of manufacturing costs is really energy in the Philippines. So if that it's about 30% of your total cost. If that 30% goes up by 50%, that's terrible. I mean, you have to get out. The companies that are operating will have to leave the country if power rates go up by 50%. So it will be a terrible thing.
Choke our national development, yeah.
So that's it. For me, the number one problem is we have to solve this gas shortage, which I see coming within 2 years.
And in terms of EDCA, are there ways or is there some direction, trajectory with the EDCA sa tingin niyo, Justice Carpio, could be also helpful to this issue? I mean, like more forward presence by Americans in Bautista Air Base or close to the West Philippine Sea. Do you think that's relevant?
Well, we can have a deal with China. If China does not stop us, if China recognizes our EEZ in the West Philippine Sea, we can tell China we don't need those additional EDCA sites.
Yun ang bargaining chip natin.
Yeah, we don't, because they're saying that we're stoking the flames. But it's because they're stopping us from getting the gas in Reed Bank. Because let us say that a skirmish happens in Reed Bank. We try to get the gas. Our Navy ship is attacked there by the Chinese. We invoke the treaty. And where will the Americans pass in going to Reed Bank? They have to pass through the Basi Channel. So the Americans are saying, protect the Basi Channel, because our warships will be passing there. So we have to protect the Basi Channel because that is the route of the American warships that will support us, that will defend us in the West Philippine Sea. We have to provide a safe passage for them because it's right there along our beside our coast. And but today, if China says, okay, you can get the gas in Reed Bank, we don't need the EDCA sites. Thank you.
And last one, Justice Carpio. I mean, I'm very happy with some things changing under the current administration when it comes to West Philippine Sea, etc. At the same time, we know that President Marcos Jr. is, well, to put it mildly, quite a conflict avoidant guy, you know. And now literally we're talking about potentially risking conflict with China if we press ahead. Now, I think both of us deep inside agree that, you know, if you really stand your ground, you will get away with it. Just like how the Malaysians had got away with the Petronas. Not only with China, but Vietnam, nagalit din sa kanya. May three-way race pa nga sila at one point. My sense naman talaga is if you stand your ground, the bullies will back out. But you have to be absolutely clear that you're going to stand your ground and have some sort of backup. I don't know if President Marcos Jr. is seeing it in the same way perhaps you and I have been seeing it. I don't know if he has been following the situation with Malaysia and others as careful as you and I. But I don't want to put you on the spot, but how cautiously optimistic you are that he will develop that? He has to be a bit Duterte, right? In a good way. Kasi medyo risky to eh. Yeah.
Well, the fear of God is in his eyes because if we cannot get the gas in Reed Bank, inflation will go through the roof. He will become very unpopular. That 20 peso per kilo of rice will be gone forever. I mean, no, he will be laughed at already. If he cannot even get the gas in Reed Bank, the sentiment of the people will change. Prices will go up. Food prices will go up. And you know, when food prices go up, I've seen it happen. I was there in Malacanang when we had a rice crisis, and people become
Ramos
emotional.
administration. Yeah, this
You,
is
you
Ramos.
cannot you cannot you cannot reason with people when they cannot buy rice or the rice prices go up. So he will become very he knows this, I think. So I think he has really no choice but to do a joint patrol and get that survey done by before the end of the year.
Thank you very much, Justice Carver. I really appreciate this because I think the angle of Reed Bank is something that has been underemphasized in a lot of discussions. I mean, you can imagine others are saying, alam niyo na, mga Caribbean accounts. Like, I could see people talking about other angles to explain this change in tone and all of that. But I also, for me naman, I also felt the shadow of the father would have played some sort of role. And you have people like Ambassador Romualdez, who we interviewed a few months ago, also here, who also said, well, the father legacy aspect was quite important for Marcos Jr. in charting his relationship with the great powers. Thank you very much, Justice Carper, for emphasizing that. My sense is, for better or worse, we'll have to catch up in a few months' time. Aside from the other fora that we always join together, because this is a very sensitive and developing issue, very fast developing issue. But at least I'm glad that we're not in a situation whereby we have to even question the president of the republic. At least tapos na yung ganyan panahon. That was very hard for us to do, right? Maraming salamat, Justice Carpio. Please stay strong, take care of yourself. Mabuhay ka, Justice Carpio. And catch up soon. Maraming salamat.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye.
you. God bless.